Nowadays, it's easy to get caught up in consumerism and buying all the latest tech, even if you don't need it. In this video, I'm going to take you through why I haven't bought the latest iPhone and why you may want to hold out if you're considering picking one up. Apple have always been known to do very little innovation, slap a new number on it and call it a new product. In recent years though, they've been closing the gaps even more between their iPhones. And what I mean by that is that the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 15, there's really not much of a tangible difference there. If you put both of them in a case and handed them to somebody, I guarantee you they would not know the difference in the phone that they're using. And I can start to see this posing a problem for Apple as the sales maybe start to plateau and potentially even decline in years to come if they do not sort it out. Now, don't get me wrong, they're making fantastic phones, but I remember a time where people were going out of their way to upgrade their phone every year or every 2 years at least, because there was such great features coming out, there was such massive innovation and changes. Like if you go way back and look at the photo that an iPhone 5 could take and you compare it to an iPhone 10, it's night and day. And I remember the day the iPhone 10 came out, that design, it was just unbelievable. But I feel like we've lost that now, and you really have to do some soul searching to see if the upgrade's worth it now, or if the new phone is even something you want. Because I feel like a lot of the time now, people are listening to reviewers and they're just basically promoting everything because obviously Apple are paying them or getting them, certain things. But in reality, people are either following those creators because they're saying positive things about the product and they trust them, or they're just doing it because everyone else has the latest thing and they feel like they need to keep up with it, so they go out and buy it even though it's a complete waste of money. Now, I currently have this is the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and it has 256 gigabytes of storage. I have it since it came out. It's fantastic, from taking photos to storing literally everything on the phone without issue. I would categorically say that this phone is the best phone I've ever had. And I suppose that is expected, especially when you pay such a crazy price for it. Nowadays, I feel Apple are at a place where they change the metal to titanium, slap an action button on it and say, there you go lads, that's 1,600 quid please, get in line. And I feel like that is just unacceptable. I don't know how people are still kind of falling for it and going for it. Now, my history of iPhone goes something like this. I think I had an iPhone 5, then an iPhone 7 Plus, then an iPhone 11, and finally the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So I was never one of those people who upgraded every year or 2 years anyway in the first place. However, even if I wanted to upgrade to the iPhone 16, it would literally be pointless. What would I be getting apart from a new metal, an action button, and USB-C, which really doesn't bother me. It was an EU mandate anyway. I know everyone wants the same cable for everything and it makes sense, but it wasn't a deal breaker that the iPhone always had a lightning port. I have enough of them floating around the house at this point. Now, yeah, I would get some way better photos probably with the camera, and I'd probably make use of the action button, but realistically these are all gimmicks that I'm probably not going to use or I'm going to forget about. So when you take it down to that level, it really isn't worth me even considering the phone. But if we go back to what I've even spent on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it'll start to make a lot of sense. And to give you a ballpark idea, I think I paid something like €1,600 on this, which is $1,700, I believe. And it is not a cheap phone by any stretch of the imagination. It's literally Apple's flagship. And I just find it unacceptable that Apple will change a few things, slap a new number and call it a new phone. Especially when you look at what they're doing with the packaging, where, a few years back they started to stop iPhones being sold with or charging bricks, and all in the name of environmentalism, but we all know it's cost cutting, let's be real. It's just a great excuse to kind of cut cost over 100 million phones. That'll make serious impact on a budget. That is definitely one of the reasons why I'm not even looking at the latest iPhone. Now, with that said, the only issue I've ever had with this phone is the battery is starting to degrade. And I checked this just before hitting record, and I've 83, let me just double check. Yeah, I've 83%, which is kind of terrible really for the age of the phone. But in fairness, I heavily use this phone. Previous to having a camera like I have now, I used to use this for all my YouTube content, recording literally everything. I also watch a ton of YouTube on it, a ton of Netflix, all that sort of stuff. I basically do everything with this phone. I store all my files on it. It's basically the only thing that's on me 24/7. So I'm by no way complaining about the battery, but it's the only thing that would force me to even look at an upgrade. But even saying that, you could just send it into Apple to get a new battery. You could have it in an authorized kind of reputable dealer, or even if you knew someone or knew how to do it yourself, you could save a ton of money doing it. So it's great from that point of view. The other benefit, if I got the latest iPhone, is directly because of this YouTube channel. So if I got the latest iPhone, sponsors would love that first of all, because they love advertising on the latest clickable, searchable things, and it would play into my hands, especially given that a lot of my videos are Apple geared and stuff like that. And definitely a tech focus. So if I didn't have a YouTube channel though, and I was sitting here comparing the iPhone 14 Pro Max to an iPhone 16 Pro Max, for example, there's absolutely no way I'd be going for it. They're the same thing in my view. And I'd be sticking with the iPhone 14 Pro Max until it exploded. Kind of a side note to this, but I really think Apple need to get back to where they were in previous years, where they would underpromise and overdeliver. I know I referenced it kind of at the start, but the way they went from the iPhone 8 to the iPhone 10, that was proper. No one knew really what was coming, but we knew it was something good. But then when they actually released it, it was unbelievable and everyone was kind of over the moon, and it really got better since then. But now I'm starting to see that plateau. I'm starting to see them getting away from really knowing what their customer wants. And you really see that with the software side. Obviously, hardware, right, that's 10% of what a phone is. The rest of it is all software. And of course, branding. Brand image is a massive thing as well. But Apple in recent years have, I think, dropped the ball in this area. If you look at the latest version of iOS, I don't know how some of you feel, but the Photos app is an absolute disaster. And I was going to actually dedicate an entire video on why I hate the Photos app. But if you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments. They've also spent so much time releasing this new VR headset. And I know a lot of the world was going down that avenue, but I just feel like it has been a flop recently. So why are we even... I say we like I work for them, but why are they even focusing on that? Like, they are an industry leader. They need to be setting an example and really setting the pace, in my view, with their product, especially when they're demanding such an expensive, crazy price for their flagship. I just feel like they've made a bunch of decisions recently that aren't very customer focused and aren't in line with what Apple have always been. Now, of course, if you're on the Android side of the fence, you'll say that Apple never were kind of innovative. They'd steal an Android feature that's been out 10 years ago and say it's the best thing in sliced pan. And I do agree with that too, in a way, but Apple have always refined features to a point where they are really bulletproof and usable. I do feel like that's slipping though. I will call that out. Like, for Apple to convince me to get the next flagship, for example, the iPhone 17, and by the way, it could be completely different. The iPhone 15, 16 could have been stopgaps to, a big change in 17. But for them to make that jump and to convince me and probably millions of other people, they're going to need to pull out of the bag some crazy stuff. They're going to need to deliver all of Apple intelligence rather than say they're going to do it and they actually didn't really deliver all of it. They're going to need to have the best cameras, some exclusive feature potentially, and maybe asking crazy questions like, can we make this thinner? They did a great job on the iPad Pro. Can they bring some of that tech and make this literally a pane of glass? I have no idea. All open questions. I don't work in Apple. It's easy for me to say from the outside looking in. But if this phone had 100% battery, I guarantee I wouldn't even look at a new iPhone. I wouldn't even be making this video. So if you are someone who is still sitting on the fence, and I kind of haven't convinced you one way or the other at the moment, there is one final thing that we need to kind of talk about. And that is if you're coming from a phone that's older. If you've been kind of going along with your iPhone 10, 8, 7, 11, 12, and probably almost 13. 13's still a great phone, but let's include it. Potentially, you probably should look at upgrading. Like, if you went ahead with it, you would notice a huge difference. So I would definitely recommend it if that was you and if I was in those shoes, for sure. But if you're anybody else and you have one of the 14, 15, 16, well, not 16, but 14 and 15, then you should absolutely not buy the flagship. It makes no sense unless you have some crazy deal on them. It's a waste of your money and your time. With that said though, if you have bought the iPhone 16, I want to hear from you. Do you regret it? What are your thoughts on it? Am I completely wrong? I'd love to hear a counter argument to what I've just said. Are you excited for iPhone 17? Let me know in the comments below. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wish you a very happy new year, and I'm looking forward to producing even better content this year, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.